This is the 2018 SEMA show in Las Vegas. I'm Kevin Ostie here at the SEMA Central stage, where we've got some pretty exciting news about an amazing award called the Masters of Motors. And to give you a little bit of insight on what this is all about, we're going to go to a video. Let's check it out right now.
Finally, an award for engines. At the SEMA and PRI show, the greatest engine builders in the world join together and show off their stuff. But this year they'll be competing for this, the Ingenuity Award, an 80-pound hunk of aluminum designed and engineered by the folks at JE Pistons that will be given to the most creative and awesome engine we can find at those two shows. Along with the Ingenuity Award comes $4,500 in product certificates from Dart, K1, JE, and Trent. The judges, which include myself, along with Steve Brule of Engine Masters and West Tech Performance fame, Mike Kojima, the editor-in-chief of the horsepower-obsessed website MotoIQ, and well-known gearhead and roadkill star David Freiburger. We'll be canvassing these shows to look at the coolest engines that are both in and out of cars and trucks. If you don't register, we might not find you. And not registering means that you have no chance to win not only the Ingenuity Award, but also all those certificates. There'll be individual class winners for categories like Sport Compact, Domestic, European, race engines, boosted, nostalgic engines, and of course a fan favorite award, which will allow those of you at home to vote for your favorite engine that you see during the course of the judging. Those subcategory winners will receive $1,000 in product certificates from JE Pistons along with their own custom trophy. Register at mastersofmotors.com today and make sure we find you on the floor so you can leave with this and the bragging rights to become the Master of Motors.
So the cool thing is that the Master of Motors has been crowned. Joe Schubeck, congratulations.
Kevin, thank you.
On winning this 80-pound billet trophy, as presented by our friends Brian Lohnes and Ross Berlanga here as well. Now, before we get into what you won and what you brought to win with, I want to hear just a little bit from these guys about the process of selecting this and why you chose what I think is a great idea, but finally to look under a hood and award under there.
Yeah, so the concept here was to have a contest that was strictly about engines, not about vehicle styling or vehicle paint or wheels. This was literally about what was powering anything we could find in here. We had a lot of entries. We also found some stuff we wanted to look at on the floor, and the category winners all kind of fell in line with what you'd expect with race engines and domestic and import. But Joe Schubeck was the overall winner, and I think we should let Joe explain what he brought here.
Absolutely.
And what the judges considered all these different engines, and basically what we came back to with Joe's engine, when you hear about it, it's incredible, is that this best represented the very first one of these we'd ever give away.
So Joe,
yes,
tell us about your engine.
Well, the concept came to me back in the 80s, late 80s, after I raced for several years in blown Chrysler top fuel cars and found the inherent weaknesses in the blocks and especially the valve train in those engines, and I thought, boy, wouldn't it be nice to redesign some of these things? And I kept getting in deeper and deeper, and pretty soon it was an expanded length block and bigger bore centers for thicker cylinder walls. And then I thought the valve train really needs to be changed. So the best valve train in the world is the dual overhead cam, where you could have very minimal valve spring pressures, and that's what it needed to go higher RPM. So one thing led to another, and so 14 months later, my chief engineer, Joe Anahori, and I had it all out, penciled out on paper, and then we hired some young computer guy the computers were just coming on right then. Yeah. And then he put everything that we had penciled onto a computer, and we put it all together and made sure all the parts would fit. It was really a professional little deal that a bunch of amateurs were doing.
It's unbelievable to hear that you basically woke up one day and decide, I'm going to redesign the Hemi engine design, right, and make it we're going to add to it as well.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, this isn't a small engine.
Well, no, the thing is, when we stretched it out for reasons of bigger bores and thicker walls, cylinder walls, we found that we could put way bigger bores, like a 4.9 bore, and then the block allowed us to put a 6-inch stroke in it.
Yeah, that's, for those of you playing at home, that's 904 cubic inches.
904.
Yeah. 904 cubic inches, and on top of that, this is designed to spin at RPM too. It's, because those are like diesel dimensions that only go to $2,000, but you're spinning this to 5,000 plus.
Well, with in the drag racing 500 cubic inch category with a smaller stroke, it would go right up to 10,000 real easy. But the thing is, with a 6-inch stroke, we didn't want to turn any higher than 5,200 for our testing. And at that point, it made 1,200 horsepower and 690 foot-pounds of torque at 3,000 RPM on regular gasoline, not high test.
Awesome.
I think one of the great parts of this story is that for those of you that don't know Joe's background, highly decorated drag racer, drove the Hearst Harrier Oldsmobile back in the 60s, the twin-engine car, had his aluminized tuxedo fire suit, raced top fuel cars. Lakewood Industries, I believe, was the company you founded.
Lakewood Industries, yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking about a guy who has been around and part of the aftermarket for a half a century plus. How much plus a half a century?
53 years.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, it's been 53 years since I last drove my top fuel car in 1965. But I started Lakewood Industries in 1959. And I got out of drag racing because I had fallen upon some new technology called hydroforming. And that was the formation of metal with oil pressure. And it was the beginning of the Lakewood high-tech scatter shield that kept all the clutches and flywheels and shrapnel inside. And the guy that got me into drag racing turned out to be my sponsor in drag racing, but he was also one of the biggest warehouse distributors in the country. He was the biggest for a while. And he says, Joe, that bell housing, we could sell thousands of them. And how many can you make? And I says, with my travels and everything, maybe 3 a month.
Yeah, right.
So he said, oh no, you got to get out of that race car. And I said, oh, I ain't quitting drag racing. And he says, yeah, you better get out of there. And he says, we need that product and badly. The sport needs it.
Yeah.
Wally Parks told me that. He says, come on, make this part. So I ended up quitting drag racing in 1965, and we started making those bell housings, and I tell you, it was the best thing I ever did. We were shipping them out in truckloads full.
Sure. Oh, everybody had one. Yeah.
And the money kept coming in wheelbarrows full.
Hey.
You know, it was really great. And I thought, ooh, this was a good thing to do.
Hope you thanked them.
But you know, it took him a lot to talk me out of it. You know how he did it? Jack Harris said to me, he was the biggest WD in the country. He says, I tell you what I'm going to do to help you make this decision, Joe. You know, I'm going to cut you off sponsoring you.
Well, he kind of
so it's really
cut the string and forced you into it. Yeah. This is an 80-pound billet trophy. Ross, your team at JE came up with this trophy and the design and making of it. Tell me about this thing in itself, because it's imposing on its own.
What's been impressive through all this was the amount of great feedback we got from the industry. A lot of great garage-built cars out there. Not everybody has to have a real fancy paint job to win something like this. So we're really excited with what we were able to accomplish here at SEMA with our great team. But most of all, if you didn't have a chance to win it here at SEMA, we have another opportunity at PRI just a month away.
Yeah, so don't tell him. He'll design a whole nother engine.
Man.
You know, you'll have something else there. Well, gentlemen, this has been a real honor to get a chance to chat with you and Brian and Ross about this tremendous award. What I love is, for the first time out, you guys have landed on something that builds on tradition and nostalgia and technology at the same time. And even if you made this engine yesterday night, the design itself is worthy. So it wins all the way around.
I'd just like to say thank you to JE Pistons for thinking of this award and thinking about giving it to me.
If I could just say,
Yes,
if
sir.
you want to be involved at PRI, you can go to mastersofmotors.com. That's where you can enter, or follow us on Facebook at Masters of Motors.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen.
One more thing I'd like to say is that the car that this engine is sitting in is in the North Hall in NL27.
What is it?
It's a 32 Roadster, and I think it's the most beautiful 32 Roadster in the world. And it was finished by Jordan Quintel, and it's really a beautiful, beautiful car. And the engine's all hanging out the sides of it, and the hood's off, and you can get all the pictures you want of it.
Yeah, because 32s aren't cool unless they're at least 850 cubes. So
900.
good job. Yeah. Very cool stuff here at SEMA 2018. Kevin Ossie for SEMA Central. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Kevin.